Edo government set for showdown with promoters of planned sultanate in the state. We'll be finding out why the government considers it a direct assault on the traditions of Edo people.
The Police Service Commission sets up a new panel to investigate the FBI's report on policeman Abba Kyari.
And the Taliban reportedly goes after persons who helped the United States in Afghanistan. And welcome to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's a very upbeat Friday today. Good morning. Absolutely. And I am Annetta Felix.
And I am Usaugi Ogbon. And thanks for joining us on a Friday. Of course, thanks for staying with us all through the week. We hope it's going to be a very interesting 2 hours for you.
So our top trending story is really going straight to the point for the first one. We know that it's been a long-running investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI in the United States, into alleged money laundering by Nigerian self-confessed internet fraudster Hush Puppy. We found U.S. documents, over 90 pages, detailing the involvement of Abba Kyari, a police boss. And it's the whole conversation regarding his indictment really has set the Nigerian police force, into an investigative series to determine Abba Kyari's role in this. So they went on to set up an investigative panel. That panel has been on for a while. And the news we're hearing now is that the Nigerian Police Service Commission has set up another in-house panel. They said this was constituted to study the documented evidence presented by the U.S. FBI against the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari. Now, this new panel will be headed by the Director, Department of Police Discipline in the Commission, Barrister Tijani Mohammed. And this was inaugurated on Thursday, by Secretary to the Police Service Commission. So we really have questions to ask about this. The first panel was set up. We have evidence from the FBI. We've seen evidence as well from Hush Puppy's transactions. We've seen evidence from Hush Puppy's text messages, communication with Abba Kyari. And this is now a second investigative panel. First of all, it reminds me of the Nigerian situation and how we seem to think that committees is the solution for this. There could be an issue and then you would find government authorities setting up committees upon committees upon committees to look into one particular matter. And you look back years later to audit that situation and you really can't find what really was the result. The most we see is that committee now presents a report and you see it making headlines, committee presents report on that. Then the issue about implementation of those resolutions is where we seem to be hanging.
I'll start with saying, I think you're on point when you called it an investigative series, because, it feels like we're in episode 1 or season 1, episode 3, and then we're going to go on to next seasons of Abba Kyari. This should be showing on Netflix, I guess, because how many panels do you need to investigate evidence that is right in front of you? Is the Nigerian Police Service Commission then saying that they don't trust the FBI or that they might know more than the FBI or the FBI may, not have done a thorough job? I'm not sure, what exactly needs to be investigated. It's really, there's not so much English that needs to be, spoken here. I've also seen a lot of people react to this and, describe this as, delay tactics, basically, and they're trying to delay as much as possible instead of doing what is entirely right. And what is right mostly because of to save the face of the current administration, which, had come into power, stating that they were going to be fighting corruption. It was one of the core things that they stated when contesting for the election a couple of years ago. And so we've had multiple opportunities for the current administration to actually fight corruption, and that includes different cases that we've seen here and there, people who have been charged, but we still haven't seen any answers. The former SGF to the president, don't remember his name now, who was also accused of grass cutting scandal, is still has not, had any case against him. There was an investigative report that was sent to the president years ago till today, till tomorrow morning, till next week, till very likely 2022. I'm very sure that nothing will happen to that report. And so I'm not sure what's the use of these series of investigations that they keep setting up, and of course, you know, a lot of people who have shared those views, you know, seem to be right. I don't think I've seen anyone who says, oh, this is the right thing to do, let them investigate. Maybe the FBI was wrong. Maybe it wasn't really Abakari. It is, you know, just delay tactics, and that's really what it is, nothing more than that. And people have also referred to other administrations, and mostly the Obasanjo administration, and how he, in his time, yes, there was also accusations of corruption in his government, but there were times when he needed to, you know, show working, you know, as in Nigerian parlance. And he did. And if you remember Tafa Balogun, who was the IG of police who was accused of corruption, there was no, you know, investigative panel left and right, you know, with regards to Tafa Balogun. He was hounded like a corrupt, you know, police officer. And there was so much drama at that time. There's also, of course, the Alama Siega's case. There's also Charles Taylor, the Liberian president at that time, who was in Nigeria. There's also James Ibori. There's so many examples of times when Obasanjo at that time had to, once again in Nigerian parlance, show working, and he did. So the current administration and President Muhammadu Buhari continues to let all these, you know, characters and these incidents happen. It really just, you know, says a lot about what the current administration really stands for, and, you know, if they will, you know, take action when there is a need to take action, and it's embarrassing.
Now, talking about the setting up of committees, we know that the president commissioned a committee to go ahead to, let me read exactly how they said it. They said this committee was set up to determine the levels of encroachment and carry out its assignments with dispatch. And what this is talking about is that there was a committee that was set up, you know, to look into grazing reserves in Nigeria and for the possible revitalization of about 368 grazing reserves across 25 states in Nigeria. This issue, really, so many sides to it, because first of all, we know that during a popular interview the president granted a sister station, he had mentioned that one of his own ways that he would use to handle this farmers' herders clashes is that he was going to, he had actually ordered the AGF to look into grazing reserves of the 90s and see how that can be revived. That really generated a stir, and people said, first of all, the grazing reserves was not a law, so it's not even a law right now. It's not something you can just enforce in states. Second of all, we know the position of southern governors on grazing reserves. They had all come together to speak in one voice to condemn open grazing, and said that from September the 1st, which is in a few weeks' time, that they were going to openly ban that grazing, you know, and saying kids can also not be involved in that, or you had to get some sort of license or permit from the state. But now that this committee has gone ahead to submit its report and the president has approved the recommendation of these grazing reserves, now the issue is, what really would be the stance of, you know, these southern governors? Would they shift ground, or would the federal government hold sway? See some of the recommendations that this committee made. They said that they had recommended the collection of field data across the 368 grazing reserves across 25 states, and that's to assess encroachment, encroachers, stakeholders' engagement, and sensitization. So let's break down the big grammar. The committee also said that they were going to begin to map out these 25 states. They were going to start geomapping. They were going to give out an analysis of their findings. They were also going to design communications regarding grazing reserves. So it's a lot that it has to do. But still the question is it going to be now the federal government versus the state governments? Are these 25 states inclusive of the states in, you know, this southern region that have banned or, you know, declared open grazing to be illegal in their states? Still lots of information that we need to know, and can't wait to see the response of the southern governors about this.
Yeah, so I you know, this really, you know, brings back, you know, the thoughts that, you know, a lot of people have shared, you know, with regards why the government is taking, you know, headers so seriously, and why we've not been able to do what is necessary. The action of the Nigerian government with regards, you know, headers alone, you know, has been, you know, from a lot of people's views, has been a little, you know, questionable. State governors have, you know, made their, you know, their stance open. You know, they said that from the 1st of September, you know, it's going to be completely banned, which, of course, that they have a right to. There was also some controversy with with Abubakar Malami and the Nigerian government a couple of weeks ago with regards to their own stance on open grazing also. most of the questions that, would also come up for this is, why isn't the Nigerian government putting the same energy or the same interest into other businesses across Nigeria? Why aren't they looking for land or searching for grazing reserves or searching for, places where other people can also do business? Every other person who wants to do business, and cattle rearing is a business. It might be something that is cultural for a particular part of the country, but it still is a business. Every other person who's doing business in Nigeria has to find a place, pay for land, rent a shop, and do their business, and of course pay their taxes. And so that's what has always been. Why exactly is grazing entirely different, or why is the government taking it, seriously? I've spoken, a lot about the body language of the government. A lot of times, people get feedback not from the things that you say, not from necessarily the laws that you put into play, but the way that you react to certain things as a government, and the way that the Nigerian government has continued, and that includes its silence sometimes when lives are even lost, when there's killings in villages and communities in certain parts of the country. You get to see, and it's just a great example is a time when, not long ago, there's a particular sheikh who had threatened, that there was going to be retaliation in Plateau State, for the lives that were lost. He said that old Fulanis don't forgive. That's according to what the news, carried. And then a couple of days later, he's seen in, Aso Rock meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari along with Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami. And so those things, you might say, oh, the president maybe, wants to have a word with the sheikh, wants to, bring peace and some of all of that. But those actions, really just tells a totally different story, or it's read, in a way for the Nigerian people. And it's pretty much the same thing with these grazing reserves. If the governors have said that they do not want people grazing on their land, and if you want to, rear cattle, you buy land, you apply for it, you get land, and then you can rear your cattle. That's really not so difficult to understand, or not so difficult to deal with. But the Nigerian government continues to push for grazing reserves and continues to put this foot forward, which really a lot of times doesn't sit well with the Nigerian people. And it also looks very much like it's still not a government that is listening to what the people are saying. Because if the people, if generally a lot of people have said that this is not what we want, you look at, weigh the consensus, and then you say, okay, well, there's more people who do not want this to continue. There's more people who have seen that this has caused loss of lives and loss of property, and families have been wiped out and some of all of that. And so I would, be very, very careful with the stance that I take. But when you instead, take actions that don't seem to be, actions that are coming from listening to the people, it just doesn't look good in any way.
Whew. The next top trending doesn't look good, and it is with a heavy heart that I say this, that, okay, first of all, we all know that the first son of the late revolutionary chief, human rights lawyer, Chief Gani Fawehinmi, passed on August 11th earlier this year, and he was age 52, and the family, didn't say much during that time, because they said that they wanted to first of all get all the facts, all the medical facts regarding the cause of his death. That's even why they delayed his burial and have fixed it for August the 27th to hold both in, the ceremony is held both in Lagos and Ondo State. So at a press briefing yesterday, Thursday, Saheed Fawehinmi, the second son of late Chief Gani Fawehinmi, spoke on behalf of the family, revealing the cause of Muhammad's death. And he said that, let me quote him verbatim, he said that the family could not immediately comment on the cause of their brother's death because they wanted the information to be based on factual medical details, especially as may be contained in the death certificate. He went on to say, today, however, we are in a position to inform you that our dear brother died from COVID-19 related complications. And arising from this, we want to urge all Nigerians to take necessary precautions to avoid being infected by the deadly disease. And he went on to encourage us to continue to wear a face mask and, adhere to social distancing and all of that. So this really is just a reminder of the fact that we're still very much in a pandemic, and that we should take this as seriously as, we did when we heard of our index case on February 24th, 2020. COVID-19 is still very much raging and ravaging the world. People are still getting infected. People are still dying from the disease, and that it's up to us really to stay protected.
Absolutely, and sad. I met Mohammed a few weeks ago. There's a particular interview that I had to be at their residence. And I interviewed him. Very, very interesting personality, and it's also so that hurts me on a totally different level. And also it feels like the Fawemi family would be mourning. First of all, of course, losing Gani, who was one of the loudest voices in Nigeria, activist, lawyer, senior advocate of Nigeria, and all of that. And then his son, who also tried to walk in his footsteps. It's a sad thing to the family. But once again, but I like the fact that they've used this opportunity to also remind people of the risk that we still are facing with regards to COVID-19. And it's going to be really, really. I don't think there's anybody. Funny enough, I think there's still people who believe that it's fake or it doesn't exist. So these are just great opportunities. Sadly, of course, with the loss of life. But these are incidents that people need to look at to remind themselves of how deadly COVID-19 is. And if you have gotten vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you should continue to live recklessly. If you have not gotten vaccinated, it's a reminder that you should try to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. The government is still sourcing as much as it can more vaccines. I remember Moderna, I think, arrived. We're still, of course, meant to continue with the second vaccination, second doses for AstraZeneca. And so it's important that everybody does get vaccinated or at least have a fighting chance against COVID-19. The Delta variant, and I was speaking to someone yesterday trying to understand at best how it is more transmissible. Is it now airborne? Is it suddenly does the Delta variant not the vaccination not help with Delta variant? Just many questions that need to be answered that I hope that we will be able to answer on this platform, hopefully sometime next week, just to get more clarity on the Delta variant. But it's a reminder to wear your face mask, to wash your hands, to stay at home if possible, if you don't have any business. Lagos nightclubs are still filled up every weekend. People are still, of course, passing the virus from one to another. If you look at the figures yesterday, I was shocked. More than 1,000 positive cases across the country. Lagos is still having staggering figures, and so these are things that everybody needs to be reminded of to ensure that they stay safe and we're able to win this fight.
Indeed, yes. That's it on Top Trending today. We'll take a break here and return with Off the Press.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of guns,
Whatever I have done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
You're welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now for Off the Press, let's introduce our guest, Mr. Jide Johnson. He's a chief lecturer at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Fantastic. On the Daily Sun newspaper, the headline reads, outrage over plan to turban Sultan of Shua Arab of Edo State. Government kicks, says move sacrilegious. Threats to peace and security. EFCC stops ex-Abia Governor T.A. Orji from traveling abroad. Anti-graft agency quizzes ex-governor's son. Commission spokesman says he was arrested. Gani's son, Mohammed, died of COVID-19 related complications. That's according to the family. PIA, Ijaw Youth Spitfire, declare President Silva persona non grata in Niger Delta. Anambra Guba, PDP candidates missing as INEC releases list. Fixes September 7 for final list. Okonkwo not afraid of opponents in the Zenith Labour Party. Security, Buhari talks tough in meeting with security service chiefs. Threatens to make more changes. Vows not to leave office a failure. Defend democracy, Atiku, Fayemi, others urge Nigerians. Ex-Vice President says restructuring will foster sense of nationhood. Ekiti State Governor says we should focus on how to reinvent our nation. PSC waits for Abakari reports, sets up in-house panel. Lastly, on the Daily Sun, Wike signs open grazing prohibition, VAT collection laws.
All right, and now to the Punch newspapers. PDP peace pact crumbles. Obasanjo seconds in closed-door meeting. Wike's group kicks as seconds plans October National Convention shift. Fresh NAC meeting may hold, and also NWC members disagree over zoning panel. Buhari approves 368 grazing sites in 25 states. And also the Naira sinks to 520 Naira to a dollar as foreign reserves slide further. Still on the Punch, Buni battles 5 suits, 100 APC members seek removal. Airport concession will fail, legal tussle imminent, says Labour. Still on the Punch this morning, IOCs owe NDDC $4 billion. Agency debt to contractors now 3 trillion Naira, says the federal government. Buhari's security strategy is working. He won't leave office a failure, says the NSA. And 55 billion Naira fraud, EFCC quizzes ex-Abia Governor Orji and son for 10 hours. Southwest kidnap victims paid 3 billion Naira in 2 years, says Gani Adams. Still on the Punch this morning, policemen detain and enslave ESN member's girlfriend. IG orders probe. Hoodlums rob POS operator of 4 million Naira, burn corpse, kill Uber driver. And finally, anger in Edo over Sultan of Shua Arab's planned installation.
Let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper to see what's making headlines. Federal character, gender gap, dog PIA as federal government inaugurates committee. NNPC to eliminate loss-making subsidiaries under new legislation. Niger Delta military seeks control of 3% for host communities. PIA has shortchanged Cross River, Hayade cries out. Host communities deserve 5%, that's according to Obi. Governors will work with PIA implementation committees, according to Fayemi. Court rejects application to stop Kyari's arrest, extradition. INEC lists Soludo despite court's affirmation of Umoji Abgas faction. Watertight security as Buhari visits Adamawa today. Council chairman give immigration 24 hours to vacate Oyo. President tells service chiefs, I am not ready to leave office a failure. And the story we saw then on the Daily Sun, Wike signs open grazing prohibition bill, VAT collection bill, others into law.
On the Nation, insecurity, Buhari threatens removal of military chiefs. I won't leave Nigeria in security crisis. Obasanjo says situation bad but redeemable. And we are winning terror war, says minister. Amotekun arrest underage herders, seizes 49 cows in Ondo. And also banks forex dealings under close EFCC watch. A few others on the Nation. COVID-19 cases rise by 97% in 3 days. President OK's review of grazing reserves in 25 states, and police arrest 889 crime suspects in Lagos. IOCs owing NDDC $4 billion, says Niger Delta Minister. Julie Johnson, good morning once again. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you. Be with you. Let's start with the story of the planned installation of the Sultan of Arab Edo by some elements in Edo State. I've gone through the story. The governor, each state has its own chieftaincy law. That's why it was possible for the governor of Kano State to remove the former Sultan of Sokoto. And that's why it was possible for him to balkanize to remove the emir of Sokoto rather. That's why it was easy for him to balkanize the emirate by creating 5 emirates out of the existing Kano emirate that has existed for over a century. So nobody could appoint a king or a traditional ruler without going through the traditional rules based on the laws of each of the states. So the Edo State government, they are not aware, the people are not aware, it's an expansionist agenda, and if this issue is not dealt with, we begin to have problem in this country. That takes me to the story of why some people are saying that they are not interested in giving their lands for grazing, for grazing, that in the next 100 years, if you give land to people to graze in their community, they claim to be indigenous of those communities. That's why the Lagos, Ogun State, Osun State, Ekiti State, and now Rivers State have passed the anti-grazing bill, while the president has approved 25 grazing sites in 25 states. The president is much more concerned about grazing than is much more concerned about security, than is much more concerned about other issues, other infrastructural development. I don't know how the focus will be on installation of an Oba, or the focus will be on having grazing site in 25 states of the federation. I think those that are involved should be prosecuted for breaking the law. The unfortunate thing is that people break the law willy-nilly, and there are no consequences for actions or inactions by people in authority. I hope the planned, we should respect our institution, even though I am of the opinion that we need to cancel all traditional institutions if you really want to practice federalism and republicanism. Republicanism is antithetical to traditional institutions. It means that the power belongs to the people. Nobody has power by right. Republicanism came from the French Revolution, whereby the royalty was condemned to the doldrums of history, and the power belongs to the republic. The republic means the people. That means government of people. But here you have Federal Republic of Nigeria, and then you have a traditional institution being part and parcel of that. Everything in Nigeria is an anomaly. We practice federalism on paper, but in principle, we practice unitarism. We say we are a Republican state, yet we have structures for traditional rulers in our local government. They collect 5% of the whatever revenue that goes to. So it's unfortunate. You can't have two heads. One is facing forward and one is facing backward. That's the contraption which we have when it comes to principle of governance, style of governance in Nigeria. So Nigeria has two heads. One is facing forward, one is facing backward. We don't know whether we are moving forward, and we don't know whether we are moving backward. God will help us out in this regard.
Judy Johnson, also speak on the statement by the NSA saying President Muhammadu Buhari's security strategies are working, and the president also saying that he wouldn't.
How would you give an exam to a student, and the student to examine himself, and the student to score himself? If you do that, what do you think every student would do? If you give an exam to a student and you give the power of evaluation and the grading to the student, if you see the way other newspaper framed it, what the president said, I won't be a failure. He threatens to fire the service chief. Then the national security advisor that should have been fired in the first instance is saying that they are passing. Which pass mark? Can he safely and conveniently travel to any part in Nigeria without security being provided, adequate security. You read the story that the president is going to Adamawa. Adamawa has been turned to a fortress. It's there in the newspaper. It's not J.D. Johnson that wrote the story. It's not J.D. Johnson that mobilized the security agencies. It is those that are controlling the security apparatus of the country that have taken it upon themselves to ensure that Adamawa becomes a fortress. So he is saying that he's trying to justify his continuing occupation of that office in which he has felt he should have gone with other service chiefs when those other service chiefs were fired. So with security is there. Every time we open the pages of newspaper, what do we read? The issue of insecurity, left, right, and center, challenges here and there, and then you have a situation whereby you have the military will say, okay, some people have repented, they integrate them back into the military. How do you fight security like that? I remember when ISIS was a major thing, and some said, okay, the members of ISIS were declared as persona non grata, and there was no nation that was interested in taking back their citizens because they've been declared a terrorist group. And that's one of the reasons why we say federal government refused to declare Boko Haram terrorist group, because if you declare them terrorist group, nobody will be able to take them. They are citizens of no country. But we know, and that's why you go have people repenting after killing and maiming people. With their repentance, bring up people from the dead. The National Security Advisor can say whatever he wants to say, but the evidences on ground are contrary to what he is saying. So it's only fools that argue with proofs. The proofs and the evidences that are on ground shows that there are serious security challenges that we are having in Nigeria. And that's why Obasanjo said, well, it's mounting, but we can win the war. It's improving. Nobody wants us to have security challenges. I want to travel to Maiduguri. I want to go to Sokoto. I want to go to, if you read this book we read in secondary school, Mr. Giwa is a trader. He tells you about how peaceful the whole of Nigeria is and how he used to travel throughout the length and breadth of Nigeria. Everybody wants to travel through that. My parents traveled throughout Nigeria. People used to travel throughout Nigeria. In a day, they will park, they will stop and eat, and then they will go. My wife used to attend Federal Guest College in Bida, and the parents will leave Lagos and go to Bida to go and check on her. Nobody can do that today.
Mr. J.D. Johnson, let's take a look at two stories, in the political space. The first one here on the Punch says that the PDP peace pact crumbles, talks about how the Wike group is kicking against the Secondus plan for an October National Convention. Also, in the ruling APC, there are 5 suits against Buni and 100 PDP members that are seeking his removal, still over the chairmanship issue.
We are not seeing the end of the crisis. We are just seeing the beginning of the crisis. One, let's talk about the PDP own. I don't know why people are always in a hurry. You have a timeline and a time span for the expiration of the tenure of your national chairman. You live with it. And when the time comes, you do your national convention and you remove your national chairman. If you succeed.
Hello? J.D. Johnson, let me just quickly point out. It says Wike's group kicks against Secondus plan for October National Convention shift. So,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. One, his tenure was cut short by 2 or 3 months. That's probably the guy wants to leave his tenure. That's the reason. For me, I think that what PDP should do is to what the parties, not even PDP, what the parties should do is to stick with their constitution. Whatever their constitution says should be the guiding principle. That's why one of the fundamentals of democratic society is the supremacy of the constitution. If parties cannot respect their own constitution, how would they respect the constitution of Nigeria? That's why you see governors act with impunity, president acts with impunity, because from the party they come from, they don't have respect for their own laws, extant laws that establish them. So they should have respect for it. If you have respect for your laws, for your constitution, there won't be crisis. There won't be crisis. The one you are talking about in APC is because you have an aberration. The one you are having in PDP is because the Wike group wants to remove the Wike group in the first instance that installed Secondus. Because without Wike's support, Secondus wouldn't have become the national chairman of PDP. So the Wike group now wants to remove secondus without sticking to the constitution of the party, while Secondus himself is running the party without sticking to the constitution of the party. So you have groups of lawless people managing the party system, and they will select candidates to run on their party platform, and Nigerians, being gullible as we are, we elect either one of these lawless people selected by lawless party members to be the people that will run our administration. So we have people that have no respect for law, and then we'll be crying. Like I told you, I gave an illustration. Nigeria is like a country that has two heads. One is facing front, one is facing back. And that's the situation you have in both political parties.
And how about for the APC?
It's the same thing as what you have in both political parties. Both parties don't have respect for their laws. They don't have respect. They don't have respect for their laws. And that's why you are seeing that the parties be devil with crisis. You see the parties are moving from one crisis to another. It's from one crisis to another. Look, I was Oyegun removed. I was Adams Oshiomhole removed. Now we have Buni. Let me tell you, for example, there is a common principle that says that if the president is from the north, the national chairman of the party will be from the south. Is that the arrangement you have in APC? All right. Now you remove Adams Oshiomhole from Edo. You replace Adams Oshiomhole with someone from Yobe. The president is from the north. The acting national chairman of the party is from the north, which takes me to the story of the membership of the steering committee of the Petroleum Industrial Act that people are complaining about, that has made Niger Delta people to declare Timothy a persona non grata. 80% of that membership is from the north. And it's about Petroleum Industrial Act, the steering committee, 80%. And you know why? Because by that act, there are some certain people that should be in that steering committee. And by structure, because you don't respect federal character principle, listen to this, the NNPC chairman is from the north. His state does not produce petroleum product. The chief executive officer at NNPC, his state does not produce petroleum product. In natural sense, the last three NNPC chairman, their state does not produce petroleum product. The permanent secretary of Ministry of Petroleum is from the north. The permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance, that's a member of that steering committee, is from the north. So you look at the structure, the president of Ministry of Petroleum is from the north. So you look at the structure. When people talk about about restructuring, these are the things. There's nothing you can do to stop these people from being the membership of the steering committee. However, because the way you have a culture of impunity, a culture that has no respect for federal character. So when you have that culture, that culture will supersede structure. And a situation whereby culture supersedes structure, you have the confusion you are having now. You have the confusion you are having now.
All right, with the time we have left, let's quickly then talk about some stories on the Punch this morning. There's one of them that says Southwest kidnap victims paid 3 billion naira. Okay,
we apologize. Okay, so I want us to talk about the story.
It says Southwest kidnap victims paid 3 billion naira in 2 years, and that is from Gani Adams.
Well, it's just kidnapping has turned to a business. You have a situation whereby people are kidnapped in Kaduna State, and they demanded for rice, they demanded to feed the kids, they demanded for motorcycles, and the parents paid over 100 million. Parents and victims and families of victims have resort to to address this particular situation. So it's a big business. Nobody is holding anybody accountable. Nobody's that have been made. We have seen technicality stopping the prosecution of them. If I begin to tell you about top flight cases that have been reported in the media, and there is nothing that we have to show for it. Evans' case is still hanging. The case of Wadume, that we lost, that some police officers were killed, is still hanging. We have not had anything concerning that issue. So where there are no consequences for action, that's what you have. Everybody's left on it.
Talking about consequences for action, Mr. Jide Johnson, there's a story we've seen also on the Punch newspaper that the EFCC has arrested the former Abia State Governor, Theodore Orji, and he was apprehended at the airport in Abuja, and his son turned himself in when he learned of his father's arrest. Now, the EFCC says that the ex-governor allegedly collected 500 million naira monthly for 8 years as for security votes when he was governor of Abia State from 2007 and 2015. Allegations, also say that he mismanaged a sum of 2 billion naira for ecological fund and conversion of Shopee funds. So, step in the right direction? Or do you think he would also be let off the hook later on?
We inherited a monster from military administration, which is the security vote. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that governors have right to security votes, and that's a vote nobody can investigate. And how can governors be spending money on security votes and it's not under scrutiny? It cannot be audited. Well, I hope if EFCC succeed in this, it serves as a case precedent with respect to looking at how governors are spending security votes. Can you imagine somebody collecting 500 million monthly? 500 million monthly.
For
now,
8 years.
If the governor of Abia is collecting 500 million, how much is the governor of Lagos State collecting? How much are other governors collecting? Who is investigating those ones that are there? What instruments have we put in place to stop that culture of collecting that money, so that you put structure in place to affect that structure?
Yeah, but how do you think they can? How do you think they can, create, make a case out of this? Because governors are, like you said, governors are still collecting security votes. They've been collecting since.
So probably if it's prosecuted on this matter, it becomes a case precedent that will make me to also ask questions about how security votes are being spent in my state. For you to do that in your state, to use the Freedom of Information Act and deploy that for governors to explain, you should be able to explain how money you are spending on security. Even United States of America told us how much they've spent. They spent in Afghanistan. They've told us. But only in Nigeria they tell you don't know anything about security. And then what is security vote? How will governors justify collecting security votes? And then we have the spate of insecurity we have. Can you imagine 500 million monthly?
All right, Jide Johnson, finally, I want us to wrap up with this. I want us to go back to the statement from the president in the paper saying that he would not leave government a failure. I want you to quickly share your thoughts on the legacy of the current administration. If there's time between now and 2023 to put forward a good legacy, do you think that they currently have a very, very interesting one? And is there enough time to change it if not?
When you treat criminals with kid gloves, when you treat lawbreakers with kid gloves, when you say people are repenting, you put them back in. You see, just go and check the consistent inconsistency of government statement when it comes to repentant Boko Haram. And what the governor of Borno State said in the past, what he's saying presently, what federal government has said in the past, and what they are saying presently. History is what put everybody in the rightful place they belong. You use your second term to establish a legacy. And I think one of the things that will characterize this administration, like the president said, is how the issue of insecurity is dealt with. One of the reasons why he was elected in 2015 was that he is a former military head of state. He knows what it takes to deal with this issue of security challenges that we have. 5 years down the line, we are seeing where we are. By the end of 8 years, the scorecard will be out. Time is still on his side for him to be decisive and to correct the wrongs of what people have perceived. Perception is stronger than reality. As far as is concerned, the records might even be there. It's just the general perception of the people. And the general perception of how is government managing that perception? How is government managing the information? How is government doing counter policies to fighting insecurity? On one hand, you want to fight insecurity. On the other hand, you are approving 25 grazing sites in Nigeria. So when you see conflicting policies that affects your security, peace and tranquility in your nation, then you are setting the pace for your record. So history will put him in the rightful place. It's not for me to decide. At the end of his administration, we go through his administration, we go through his scorecard, and wherever he belongs in history will place him there. But the thing is that he only has this second opportunity. Some of them are fortunate to have second opportunity to rule this country. Like Obasanjo had that opportunity to. He's having his own regret. What he needed to do that he didn't do, what he had opportunity to do that he didn't do, and those things he did, they are there. His scorecard, there's nothing he can do to change his scorecard. So the only time Buhari can change his own scorecard is when he's here now. After he's gone, history will help him to place him where he belongs.
Okay, Mr. Jide Johnson, we thank you very much as always for showing up on Off the Press on Fridays. Do have a great day.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Anita, and it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks a lot.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too, sir.
You too.
All right, stay with us. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're going back in history to share with you things that happened today. I'm talking about the NFL, and the founding of the NFL in 1920.
And I'm going back to 1989 to talk about a very strange story. Two brothers murdering their parents.
We'll be back.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. And now let's go back in history to the year 1920. What we currently know as the NFL in the United States started today. And of course, reports have it that it actually started sometime in 1890s, I think. But it was on this day that a formal body was officially set up, to become, football in the United States. They had played the game, in the around 1890 in the build-up to this year. But there was no official NFL body. So it was on this day that American football got its big break. It is, of course, currently the most lucrative sports league in the world, according to some reports. But it wasn't until 1920 that a group of men met in a place called Canton to form a league that would eventually get pro teams from every state in the United States back then. It was a group of men, including an already legendary football star named Jim Thorpe, who met to see if they could form a league that would help bring American teams together, and of course agreed on new standards and new rules for playing in the NFL. Yes, it was at that time called the, let's see if I can find it, yes, it was called the Professional Football League at that time, and eventually now became the NFL a lot later. So Jim Thorpe is, of course, known as the founder of professional football in the United States, and he was nominated as president of the new league in 1920 on this day.
Interesting story. Football, interesting game. But the next top trending story really shocks me. 1989. This story, man. Now, two brothers actually killed their parents. They just simply went into the house, took a gun, shot their parents. They left, waited it out, came back later to the house, and called the police that someone had shot their parents. Now, this reminds me of the story that we shared on this day in history, where a woman just drove her child into the lake or into the body of water. And she called the police that a black man had driven her car and abducted her baby. So that's what they did. They killed their parents, returned, and told the police that someone had killed their parents. So they were not suspects initially. not suspect at all, until they began to spend money unusually. They spent a large sum of their parents' fortune. They bought a Rolex. They purchased a buffalo wing restaurant. They bought a Porsche. They really were living the life. Now, the truth eventually came out when Ali told his psychologist, Jerome Ozell, about the murders, talking about, confessions, open communication, and all of that. He told his psychologist about the murders. Now, the psychologist went on to tell his girlfriend. The girlfriend then went to the police and reported. And that's how they were arrested. And they were sentenced to life imprisonment and remain in jail.
There's information from a psychologist. Is it admissible in court? I thought, those were
They said at the end of the day, at the end of the day, they said the recording was not admissible as evidence, because Lai eventually threatened him, and they said it voided the doctor-patient privilege. But eventually, they were able to prove it anyway.
It was grounds for investigation into the, So it may not have been admissible in court, but it was enough reason for, for the investigation to turn around. If it was initially a closed case, now they have, more evidence to look at it from a totally different direction. And this, that perspective always makes me wonder what Reverend Fathers hear, when it's time for confession, Catholic priests rather, what they hear when it's time for confession, and because I don't know if they, get tempted every now and then to go to the police and say, more.
Someone just confessed to murder. But these ones were sentenced in March 1996.
Oh, okay. Well, that's about 7 years after. Yes, 7 years after 1989 to 1996. I think my maths was failing me. 7 years after the murder. Yeah, but we've seen stories like this. I've seen also I've heard rather of people who kill their spouse because they know that they have death benefits that they would receive after she dies. It's not the first time also you've heard of children trying to kill their parents. There's also a story of a man who tried to set up a hitman to kill his wife. A woman actually tried to set up a hitman to kill her husband.
To kill her husband.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The hitman now killed her.
No. Unfortunately, the hitman was an undercover police officer. So she was arrested. So
I've seen a movie, I can't remember the title, where he's a hitman, right? Advertised hitman. So when you contact him to kill someone, he actually turns around and kills you. That's what he does.
Oh, that's
he said, for you to be that wicked, you need to be.
That's interesting. But anyway, the Menendez brothers, that's what the story is about. And of course, the start of the NFL on this day in 1920, the 20th of August. We're going into our major conversations for today. We're starting in Edo State, where there apparently was a planned coronation of a sultan in Edo State, the Shua Arab or sultan in Edo. The Edo State government put out a statement yesterday officially, sharing their views concerning that, and we're going to be looking into that after the short break.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue shipping development, and ship registration.
Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Niger, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
have
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6. So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
Then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
Welcome once again to The Breakfast. And now let's move our conversation to Edo State, where the Edo State government has put out a statement in response to the planned coronation of a Sultan of Shua Arabs of Edo State. We are speaking this morning with Curtis Ugbo, who's the president, Benin Solidarity Movement. Good morning, Mr. Ugbo.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, my brother.
Thanks for joining us. So I want you to first of all share your thoughts with regards the planned coronation.
Yes.
How did that news hit the residents of Edo State and the Edo indigents?
Yeah, there's tension here right now, and we are not happy about what is going on. We cannot imagine people, strangers, coming into our land to swear in a sultan or coronate a sultan in our kingdom. So we are all totally against it, and we are all agitated already.
Okay, so what exactly is the challenge? If there is a Muslim community in Edo State,
yes.
So don't they deserve to have their own, type of traditional leadership, in the person of a sultan?
We know we have traditional laws that rules the state and every other state in the federation.
Yes.
Yeah, we cannot, I cannot go to Borno State now and say I want to be an Inogie. They want to be coronated as an Inogie in Borno State or in Adamawa State. So it is an aberration, and we are totally against it. They have Hausa communities, they should have their leadership. And they have Muslim communities, they should have their leadership, which is recognized by the Benin Traditional Council. So we cannot allow this kind of coronation, because looking at the houses where they are coming from, they are not even Nigerians. They are Arab, whatever, Sheikh Arab or so. They are not Nigerians, and knowing what is going on around the world right now, the terrorist activities going on around the world, we are being careful,
So, Mr. Ogbo, what can you tell us about this man, this, Sultan Idris Adano?
I don't know him. This is the first time I'm hearing about him, and it calls for worry, because he's not recognized. We don't know him. So it's a lot of, that ASIS, a lot of issues. We have been having challenges in that ASIS. Kidnapping, our forests have been taken over by terrorists. And these are non-Nigerians. So for a non-Nigerian to come close to the palace of the Oba of Benin, and he's saying he wants to be coronated as a sultan, it is strange. And we are totally against it, and it will be resisted.
So, Mr. Ogbo, when you said come close to the palace of the Oba of Benin, what do you mean? Did this sultan and his group actually come to the Oba of Benin for permission? Or what happened?
Well, I don't really know much about them. It was strange to us when we heard that they are going to coronate. We saw the invitation of coronation. I cannot have two kings in the kingdom. So what I mean by coming close, the houses they are coming from, where they want to do the coronation, is about 25 minutes drive to the Oba of Benin Palace. So it calls for worry. We are not comfortable with it, and we are going to resist it.
Okay, quickly share with us, what the current relationship is between the Edo indigents and the Muslim community, because Edo State does have its, Muslim community.
Yes, of course. Of course. We have a Muslim community, and it is being headed by Benin man. So we are very careful and conscious about things like this. So that is why the Muslim community is headed by a Benin man. And if anything goes wrong, we hold that Benin man responsible. So we cannot allow a stranger in our land, because we have been having series of strangers coming into Benin Kingdom, trying to grab land, and we are very watchful and very careful,
Okay, would you expect that there should be also a response from the palace of the Oba of Benin?
Yes, the palace have responded, because I am close to the palace. I am the private land and debt recovery agent to the Oba of Benin. So we have responded, and we don't know them. They are not recognized,
So we read a statement by the Edo State government. This was signed by Osarode Oge, Secretary to the State government in Edo State. He basically went on to say that there have been complaints from indigents and residents of Edo State about this move. What are some of the complaints that you've heard from the residents now, not from the palace?
Yeah, the government took a very proactive measure, and to respond immediately. So that was a good one from the state government, and I wish they get these people arrested. These people trying to cause confusion, cause chaos, to breach of security, in the state. You cannot come from Chad across Borno State and come to Edo State, and you want to coronate yourself as a sultan. You know, in fact, that is already criminal. So they need to be called and questioned on their mission in Edo State.
No, Mr. Ugo, I'm asking you, like, from the perspective of the residents, what really is their complaint? Are they scared that this might lead to something else? What exactly is the grievance of the residents?
Of course, we have been having, we are in this country, we are seeing what the Fulani herdsmen have been doing to our farmers. So they've taken over most of our forests, doing all sorts of criminalities, kidnappings, armed robbery, and killings. So we cannot condone that. We cannot allow that to happen. You know, when eventually they swear themselves or coronate themselves as a sultan in our land, it's threatening and frightening. You know, so it will be resisted, and for the sake of security, you know, the security agencies should take adequate action, because we cannot fold our hands and see this happen.
What more would you expect from the youths in Benin or in Edo State?
For now, we are appealing to the youth to calm down and let see what the government, you know, the chief security officer of the state, who is the state governor, is there. So we are watching them. If nothing is done, the youths can take for self-help, because this is endangering to our lives and our properties.
Okay, so Mr. Ugo, you mentioned that this is a move, this coronation is a move that would be resisted. When you say you would resist this, could you explain how you mean? Would you be sending delegations to the
what
team?
I mean
Would you
by
be
resisting such a coronation is that, one, it is strange to us, and two, we are going to lead protests against it.
Okay.
We don't go outside the law.
So you would lead protests, right? This coronation is due to hold tomorrow and next tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. So are you planning to protest today? Because it seems like a very short notice here.
No, we cannot act more than ourselves. We are watching the state government. We want to see what the state government want to do. Then before we know what next to do.
Okay, so do you see, any possibility of this coronation being called off, maybe due to the response of the government and the people?
It is better it is called off to avoid chaos.
All right, Mr. Ugo, tell us a little more about the Muslim community in Edo State, those in Edo North. What's the current relationship like with the rest of Edo State? Because I know that Edo has Muslims.
The Muslims and the Christians here, they are living peacefully, and there's no problem. Not until this Fulani herdsmen terrorist attack on innocent people, travelers across the state and within the state. So a lot of people are worried,
Would you also describe this planned coronation as an insult to the Oba of Benin?
Of course, it is. It is. It's a big insult, not only to the Oba of Benin, to the Benin Kingdom, the people of Benin Kingdom. So we are not going to take it. I'm a Benin man, a very proud one at that. So we will never accept such in our land.
Okay, well,
thank you.
It's important, and that's one of the reasons I asked, what steps must be taken. It's also important to ensure that there is maintained peace in Edo State. The state governor, of course, has put out a statement from Usao Ogie. Of course, we will be following and seeing how this turns out. Can you also share with us, exactly what location this coronation is planned? And how long these people have been in in that community?
I don't think these people have been around for the last 2-3 years, because they are strange to us. We only know that they are Fulani cattle rearers. Then there are Hausa community who sells tomatoes, onions, and all that in that axis. And we even have a duke, because that's a dukedom. You know, we have a duke that oversees that area on behalf of the Oba of Benin. So it is strange to us to see that somebody is bringing up his head, you know, to say he wants to be coronated in our land.
So this is not in Isako or the core Edo North region?
No. It is Ikobaka, close to Oredo, you know. And our Abba Palace resides at Oredo, you know. So it calls for worry, you know. So I cannot go to, as a Benin man, go to Kano and say I want to be an Enogi of an area of my people, you know. So it is only the Oba that have the authority, the traditional authority to decide who and who are given leadership, traditional leadership in Benin Kingdom.
Well, you know, I believe that there's also places where people have their own, you know, traditional leadership. It may not be as high as a sultan or an oba or an enogi.
No, they have a sariki.
Yes.
We know them to be having sariki, sariki Fulani. You know, the Muslim. They are within the Muslim communities because, you know, we have a Muslim leader who is a Benin man who controls all of them. You know, so this one coming to say he want to be a sultan, it is strange. It's an aberration, and it's going to be resisted.
All right. Coach Isubo, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'd like to speak with you again.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully sometime next week, you know, after this, you know, the events that have been scheduled for tomorrow and next play out. And if there's also any feedback that we'd like to get from you, we'll definitely reach out to you.
We are watching and waiting for the state government to take appropriate action with the security agencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obo.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Osarige, really looking at this matter, we discussed this earlier with Mr. Jide Johnson on Off the Press, and one of the things he said that I noted was that is it important for us to really have traditional rulers in Nigeria? This is something that I know that it's highly debatable because we know the role of traditional rulers in the Nigerian setting, especially culturally, right? So I can imagine lots of people debating that with him, saying, you know, his call for, you know, the cancellation of this traditional leadership in Nigeria is not something that may hold much water. You know, it seems that we are fundamentally, you know, traditional when it comes to, you know, things like this regarding traditional rulers and obas. This is something that has been our identity before colonization, before westernization, you know, but I think we need to make a divide between the accepted traditional leadership and an imposition, like what the Edo State government is saying. You know, if something like this is to happen, you know, I feel that's why I asked him that, you know, did this group come to the palace to negotiate, to dialogue, to explain exactly what their intent is? It might be, I have no idea the full scale of the situation, but it might just be their own sultan of maybe Muslims in the community. I have no idea. But what I'm saying is, there had to have been dialogue with the existing powers. So it doesn't seem like you're stepping on them or you're trying to encroach on their land or, you know, the way it's been interpreted.
Yeah, but I don't think they need to go to the palace. I think it's the Edo State government itself. You know, like Jide Johnson had described that, you know, that's what gave the Kano State government the powers then to do what it did then with the
splitting of the emirate into five.
Yeah, exactly. So it's left for the Edo State government. It's not, they don't need to go to the Oba's palace.
Or the Edo State government. But negotiations anyway is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think it's mostly because of the tension across Nigeria today. You know, and that's why I had to keep mentioning the fact that there is a Muslim community in Edo State. There are actually Edo Muslims. The Edo North, you know, the Isako and, you know, Isan, some of all those areas are mostly Muslims. And they will have their, like he said, you know, their Seriki, I believe, who is some level of a traditional leadership. But when you're talking of a sultan, that's a totally different level. And it's really because of where Nigeria is today and the level of mistrust between
certain group and another,
the
yes.
north and, a lot of other parts of the country. And so, like he said, you would not go to Kano or go to Borno State and have an Enogie there or have an Oba of Benin people in Edo State. You wouldn't, ever try that. So that's really where the issues are coming from. And so there obviously needs to be a lot more of these conversations, and it's important that they maintain that relationship that they've had with the Muslim community in Edo State and, normal Christian Edo indigenes. They're parts of Benin City that are really just Muslims. It's filled with Muslim traders, families, and the likes. That's really an area where they all live. Are they allowed to have a sultan? I do not think so. If it's possible, or would they need to approach the Edo State government to give them the leverage and the rights to have their own sultan? I also don't think the Edo State government will do that, because it seems or it feels like an insult. You can have two kings, basically, regardless of what religions exist. You cannot necessarily have two kings. And so there's the Oba of Benin. There's not going to be another Oba-like figure in the same
space,
city,
yes.
same space. But I also don't agree with G.J. Johnson, like you mentioned, when he's talking about removing traditional
or
rulership,
totally cancelling them. Yes.
No, I don't agree with that. For the even before Nigeria became Nigeria, before the 1960s, before all of that, there have always been traditional rulers. Some of our history books will tell you of Jaja of Opobo and Oba of Vorame and some of all those people. Those have always existed, and you're not going to throw that away simply because of democracy and modernization. Some of all of that, they will always exist. What we can instead do is try to limit the
powers they have.
Not limit the powers they have, but there's certain parts of there's certain religious practices that we may need to, religious and traditional practice rather, that we may look at and say, okay, this is no longer progressive.
Definitely.
This is no longer working. We need
things that violate human rights and dignity.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Some of all of that, and that goes across the whole country, including in the north. Every other week we talk about Hizbah and some of what we think as excesses. So that's what we can do instead. But about taking it away completely, no. People need to have that, traditional leadership. They need to always have that person who they, see as a leader, as a ruler, who should be able to make the best decisions for his people. The Olu of Warrior and his coronation, if you've been following the drama that has been, occurring for the last couple of weeks, that's also because of the power that leadership has. You're not going to go to Oyo State and say, oh, the Oni of Ife is no longer relevant.
So the thing regarding this particular situation is we hope, we can't wait to see what plays out tomorrow. They put all the details there, the hotel, where they're going to hold this coronation, the dates, the time, and all of that. So let's just wait and see, and keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that nothing violent, no violent news or report comes out from Edo State in the next 2 days.
It might also, there's a word for this, but it might really just be as a term, to this, but it might just be a little trigger, to see how people react before whatever the main plan, is.
To test the waters.
Conspiracy theories, yeah. They're just trying to test the waters to see how the reaction is before whatever main plan may exist, would come into play. Okay. And also seeing how and hopefully doesn't get blown out of proportion. Hopefully this is where it ends. Because there's a way that this could occur, then it now becomes a national issue and starts to bring, a totally different conversation entirely. And nobody wants to see that because, like I said, they've lived in peace for centuries. And, this is not going to be the reason why Northern or Edo Muslims will now start to have challenges in Edo State. I don't want that.
Yes. Oh, right. Here's where we'll draw the curtain on this conversation. We'll take a break here and return to talk about security in other parts of the world. We know the crisis right now in Afghanistan, and there's a new dimension there with the Taliban. Stay with us.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. we go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody come and say. The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
It's only in Nigeria where special needs kids are not good in arithmetic.
If your lecturer teaches you something in a certain way, and then you find another way of explaining it, you might be penalized for not even putting it down word for word.
And what drives me crazy the most is when you see Loma officials, these ladies in orange suits on the roads, in Lagos roads in particular, sweeping the roads, are now sweeping the sand into the gutter. I mean, were they not trained before they got that job?
It's the adoption of strange laws that we have come and put and twisted religion into it for me that is causing the problem.
There's a lot of change that can be created because half of the children today are homeschooling anyway. So can we actually take advantage of what we're having on ground and change the narrative?
It's now you want me to jump. Are you okay? I didn't go since. It's now you want me to leave? No, because it's about to get better.
Are you ready to party right from the comfort of your TV screen? The Rundown's here to save the day. From freshly baked videos to the classics to the youngins and dope conversations, all in one chart. We got you covered. Just tune in to The Rundown every Friday, 10:30 p.m. West African time. The Rundown. Let's turn it up.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Since the Taliban took control of Afghanistan on Sunday, August 15th, 2021, there have been concerns about the rights of women and children in the country that is now called the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. Now, despite press conferences held by the Taliban, basically assuring citizens that the rights of women will be respected, Brookings Institute's researchers, analysts and experts say that they doubt that that's a likelihood. To speak more on this and on the rule of the Taliban in Afghanistan, let's invite Mr. Dan Ekere. He's a lecturer of philosophy at the University of Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Ekere.
Good morning.
I want to get your assessment of the general overview of the takeover of the Taliban in Afghanistan, and then delving straight into what their rule might likely look like.
Well, thank you for that, for having me. Now, we do know that the Taliban have always constituted a serious threat, to the government of Afghanistan, and in fact. Not just Afghanistan, the entire region has been under serious threat. Unfortunately, this time around, they've been able to take over the government of Afghanistan. Yes, but when you look at their modus operandi and all that they have done in time past, the question you will ask is, how assured are you that these people can actually guarantee the freedom, the security, the protection of the lives of the people? So in this particular instance that they are now in charge of government, although the EU has said, even though they are not a legitimate government, they don't have a choice but to deal with them. Now, to what extent is an issue? So I have my fears looking at both the way in which they took over government and the operation in time past, whether they can actually guarantee the liberty of the people, particularly the issue of women and children. I have my fears about it because in the first instance, they are not a established institution now, a law-established government. So how are we sure that they are actually going to abide by the laws of the land? If they were so law-abiding, how come they changed away the president? So these are some of the issues one will look at in terms of trying to access their pledge that they are going to protect, everybody, particularly women and children. It gives me a lot of concern, as a matter of fact.
So what you're saying is the world shouldn't take their message seriously, because they've put out a message saying that they will respect, these rights and the likes, but it doesn't seem very likely from what you're saying.
In my own view, I don't think it's something that we can go to bed with.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So, Mr. Ekere, we know that from 1996 to 2001, when the Taliban ruled Afghanistan, they were very strict in how they regarded and treated women. They closed girls' school, they banned women from working, and even for the men who had short beards were penalized. And even though they're now saying that they're going to make sure that, they obey women's rights, we're seeing a story here that what the Taliban is doing is that they're going door to door to find people who are seemingly against them and are working for the US and NATO. What really might we see in the coming days in Afghanistan?
Thank you. That again establishes or confirms my fears. Because if there are people who are going to be law-abiding, who are concerned about the liberty of people, they will not even engage in that search or try to deal with those that they claim or they feel might have been in support of the U.S. over the years. And looking at their activities in the past, the strictness, the toughness with which they descend on people, and the rest of it, establishes us, in fact, as well. So my worry now is that, even if they claim to protect the rights, the liberty of men, women, and children, the question you would ask is, on what background? On the laws they are going to give that will be so stern, so tough, that the law on its own that's going to take away your liberty? Is it on democratic principles? Is it on the rule of law? And if it's the rule of law, what law? You know, those are the questions that will arise as a result. Because once they give those kind of strict laws, for instance, you want to go and deal with people who don't have long beards, you want to deal with people who have this, who have that, which already conflict with their liberties, it gives a lot of fear. So I think that the whole world, particularly the United Nations, should watch out carefully and see how they can actually deal with this situation, that the rights of people, that their liberties is actually guaranteed.
Now that you've brought in the UN into this, we know that on Tuesday, German Chancellor Angela Merkel put out a statement asking and urging other European countries to accept refugees from Afghanistan. But with the perception of the country, you know, do you see, you know, other European countries opening their doors and opening their arms for refugees from Afghanistan?
I want to think that they will comply or cooperate, because the EU has already issued a statement that despite the fact that they recognize that this is not the legitimately elected government of Afghan, they are going to deal with them. So how they are going to deal with them is what we are yet to know. But if it is anything to go by, it means that they must have to as well cooperate in a manner that the refugees are taken care of. Because without that, how else are you going to deal with them? Is it by way of? After all, it's not going to be by fights. And already the situation has created a refugee scenario. So one way of dealing with them is to ensure that you accept these refugees, go into whatever negotiation you are going to make, in order that there will be a situation that will be bearable for the people. As for the Taliban, they are already a group of people who are addicted to a particular lifestyle, and for them that lifestyle is the best. You know, so I want to. For those who do not key into their philosophy, are the ones who are going to have the challenge, and that is what is creating the refugee situation. If they are so assured that these people can guarantee their liberties and their rights, do you think people will be fleeing away? So these are the challenges, really.
Mr. Akere, let's also talk about the origination of or where this type of philosophy came from. There currently are rallies in Afghanistan. Some of the Afghan people are protesting against, you know, the Taliban already, and that was in the news yesterday. Yeah. But can you share with us, you know, the origin of this type of philosophy that the Taliban has? It's you know, a lot of people would argue that this isn't pure Islam and this isn't what the Quran teaches. And so how is it so powerful that it has been able to, you know, give birth to the Taliban and, of course, you know, what we're currently seeing in Afghanistan?
Thank you. Now, the origin will be very difficult to say it is this point or that point. But then look at a few things that have been taking place over time. You will recall that crime, in a way, is one thing that attracts people when they are jobless. Now, again, when you find religious doctrines that are being marketed or sold to people, that people key to with some kind of persuasions, religion is one thing that operates by faith, that once you hold on to it, you don't use logic to handle it. And the moment you key into a religious faith, the tendency is that every other value will come under it. Now, these people have been able to market a particular style of religion. The word Islam will be made to understand means peace. So I don't know how peace becomes fight. So you will find out that this...
Oh, sadly, we lost Mr. Akere there. But to bring you up to speed, we've been talking about the Taliban rule in Afghanistan and how it's likely to be in the coming days, coming weeks, months. And only God knows if, you know, this would be able to basically be addressed before it spirals out of control. But I want us to take a look at about 5 key promises the Taliban has made to the Afghan people and to the world. Now, they've mentioned that the rights of women will be respected, but they put the caveat, they said it's going to be within the confines of Sharia law. but we know that people have expressed fears that that might not work. Mr. Ekere, we have you back. Welcome.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. I was trying to draw, a background. Yeah, and that, faith itself, the way it works,
Okay.
it is such that every other thing comes under it. Faith can separate a family more than anything else. So now, the one of the Taliban, if the word Islam means peace, and they are telling you that they are Muslim, members of Islam, it shows that they are the extremist group. And once you go into extremism, obviously, you are creating a new set of values. And when you look at the way discipline is enforced by some of these, religious beliefs, you begin to wonder whether there could be any sense of humanism in the practice. So for the Taliban, they've been able, to impress themselves on a set of people who perhaps at a point, either they were politically displaced or economically disadvantaged, and along the line they were able to make some provisions to cater for them. And they have now, just like what you have in Boko Haram, there are people who are still being recruited into it, despite the fact that what they are after is, bringing mayhem upon people. So in such cases, even Boko Haram offer people money. We'll see videos where people are recruited into Boko Haram and they are telling you they don't even know what they are going there for. So somehow these people make some provision for their people, and such people believe that this is the savior. Along the line, they establish themselves in such a way that they are so enmeshed in all the vices, even in their own particular beliefs, to the extent that when they unleash that on the general public, they believe that that should be the standard of life.
Yeah, Mr.
So that's the real challenge we're having.
Mr. Ekere, I've listened to sadly, I think I shared this yesterday. I listened to a couple of podcasts where people were detailing their fears. People who are currently still in Afghanistan, who
including journalists,
journalists who had assisted the United States and assisted the West, all the while that they were still present there. And so that's a very, very strong fear if those people would survive. There's a person who also was interviewed who said that nobody should take the word of the Taliban seriously because they will find these people and they will behead them, according to him. But I want you to share your thoughts on if the Afghan people can take back their country. Is there any possibility in that? Seeing how the Afghan army almost basically fled and surrendered, can the Afghan people still take back their country?
Well, even the Taliban, they are part of Afghanistan. Some of them are from the country, so they are still part of the country. So to say whether the Afghan people can take back their country, they are the ones in charge, except that they are not the legitimate ones that were given the power and authority to govern the state. So for the others who will be looking forward to reinstalling or reinstating the kind of order they used to have, it's going to be a very tall order. That will mean that the rest of the world will have to come to their rescue. Because if you continue with the line of action they have taken already, they are prepared for anything.
So, Mr. Ekere, what we saw 1996 to 2001 was U.S., takeover, U.S. invasion, the U.S. occupation, actually, of Afghanistan. Now, they pulled out, the Taliban took over again. Now, if we're looking at a situation where world powers come together, Russia, China, because right now I don't see the U.S., any possibility of the U.S. going back into Afghanistan. From the body language and actually the words of Joe Biden, he actually said there was no right time to pull out of Afghanistan and, they're living with the consequences. So other countries coming together to intervene in Afghanistan, do you see that as a possibility? Because we saw what happened when the U.S. stepped in and when they pulled out. So do you think countries will decide to, let the country deal with it themselves, because maybe they go into the country, they occupy there for a while, and then they come back and the Taliban comes back stronger?
Yeah, now you look at it from this angle. You now have a refugee situation. Is it Afghanistan that is now hosting the refugees? No.
Not at all.
You see, once a problem of this kind happens to any country, it spills to the neighboring communities, the neighboring countries. Practically the rest of the world suffers part of it. So if you wait for the Afghan community to address this issue, then what you are saying is that the refugee situation should escalate, and that there will be, a situation in which people will be in a kind of bondage. So what's the essence of the United Nations, if not to address challenges of this kind? So they must find a way of coming into negotiation with these people and ensure that they reinstate order.
But Mr. Ikere, we know the Taliban, negotiations, amnesty. We've seen how they act when it comes to this, and how nations cannot exactly hold them by their word when it comes to negotiations and peace deals. First of all, when we lost you there, I was basically reiterating about 5 promises the Taliban have made. And when I look at them, when you take a closer look, it then seems like it's promises that they say they would not fulfill. Because first of all, they've promised to grant women freedom and rights. In the confines of Sharia law, people are afraid that might not happen. They have said that they are going to pardon everybody who walked to the US, all their enemies. But now we're seeing that the Taliban have been going door to door looking for people who actually work with the US to attack them or imprison them or punish them. They've also said that they're going to ensure security in the embassies. We don't see any likelihood of that happening. They said that also they're going to make sure that they ban narcotics. We know how the Middle East is with drug use. Also they have said that there's not going to be any use of Afghan soil against other countries. So when you take a look at the promises that Taliban have made, and what we've seen with 2 of those promises going southways, do you see it as maybe these are things that they've said that they would actually do, not things that they wouldn't do?
I've told you clearly that I have no confidence in the Taliban. In the same manner, they are not ignorant of the fact that even the U.S. occupation of this place was equally not a genuine and sincere something. They know that the West, particularly the United States, equally has a lot of shady deals. So when you know that this person is not plain, and you are dealing with such a person in a plain manner, you are obviously just deceiving yourself. So they understood very clearly too that this is the nature of the U.S. as well. So they have to find a way to see how they can just market themselves, see how the world can embrace them and see them as who are really out for something serious. And that's why all those promises are coming out. Even some of those promises, the Sharia-based promises, they are as good as bondage, some of them. Because I'm not aware that Sharia permits women to become president one day. I don't know.
Oh, it doesn't. Really funny how you've mentioned that they have to be accepted. And that is, it's a funny place to be in. To know that a terrorist organization will be accepted, by other countries. I'm not sure how that even sounds to anybody. And that includes also on social media, because Facebook, Twitter, and the likes don't seem to be, shutting down Taliban pages. They've allowed some of these things to thrive. But I want us to go back to the start. As far back as you remember, the Taliban have been growing in strength and have been thriving because of support from certain quarters, I believe. They have had some level of support, maybe from terrorist financing nations. And like you also mentioned, the U.S. have some blame or some shady deals. So, Mr. Ikere, who would you say should also hold a huge part of the blame for what we're seeing today?
Well, if the area of blame is what you are looking for, it's going to be a very serious situation, because in the first instance, before you begin to blame the fowl that is eating cassava, you should blame the cassava that refuses to grow downward and choose to grow upward. So something has created a situation for them. And that is why all of this is happening. So rather than go for blames, we should look for ways out of this logjam. And one of such ways, like I said, is for the United Nations to do what is more proper to guarantee a situation whereby the liberties of people are protected. Yes, that is the most important thing. Because if you go into the issue of blames, on both sides, obviously, you will find some levels of settled places of blames. But the most important thing is the people. How do we address the challenge the people are faced with? How do we address this issue of refugees? Because at the end of the day, it's equally going to affect the issue of food supply. Which should be that's well. So we must look at this thing holistically and see how best to address it. And I'm thinking that one sure way of doing this Obviously, you will not send anybody from the United States to Afghanistan and say you want to mediate over one thing. They will not listen to you. I even don't think the United States will want to engage in that. So let it under the umbrella of the United Nations for this issue to be escalated to the point that we can't get to a resolution, an amicable resolution of the crisis.
Finally, how do you expect the other parties here, you know, the silent parties, Russia and China, what role do you think that these other nations might play in this conversation?
We do know the kind of conflict, the kind of rivalry that, you know, if you like, call it cold blood. This time, I don't know if the blood is actually cold or hot, you know. Yeah. I think what should be done, as long all the nations mentioned are part of the United Nations, let the United Nations as a body take over this challenge and address it. Otherwise, you will still find these skirmishes of, you know, several interests, the whatever, Russia and the rest of them. Yeah, because there's always this battleground of who is superior. That battle of supremacy, if we allow it to thrive, the people will always be the ones to suffer, because these are like two elephants. When they fight, the grass obviously will suffer. Yeah. So let's ensure that the grass is nourished so that it doesn't suffer.
Dan Ekere, lecturer at Philosophy, University of Lagos, thank you so much for your time this Friday morning.
Thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
Absolutely. And of course, best wishes to the Afghan people today, and we hope that the best result is achieved here, hopefully. This is where we wrap up. You can join us on our social media platforms to catch up on any of these conversations that we've had this morning. It's simply at PlusTvAfrica on Instagram and Facebook. Same with our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa.
I am Annetta Felix. Bye-bye.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Pushed to the point that I had to start something not numb. And I'm a big risk taker and I enjoy doing things that nobody really does. I wanted something different from every other art form that has been pushed out there. I didn't have that fulfillment in what I was doing, and I really wanted to express myself more as an artist, and I decided to resign and go into practicing art full time. I loved subjects that had illustrations or drawings in them. I just kept pushing it and went to the extent of studying art in school, so it's been art all my life. I try to conceptualize what I want to create in my head. Even in as much as scattered as it might be, I create it in my head first, then I put it on paper. I sketch, then I try to pick colors and I proceed to the main piece. A friend of mine told me like there's really nothing that could be achieved with graffiti here. The piece behind me is titled Bold Steps. So I'm just trying to put my own as an abstract journey of African fashion has come so far. The word there is Ikeakpa. Ikeakpa is a Bini word for movement. So we are it's just a movement, and you know we have the shoes here which shows the flow and the storm which the movement creates, you know, while working. I'm Osa 7. I'm an African urban artist and design consultant.
Many thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. President Muhammadu Buhari has vowed not to exit the government as a failure at the end of his second term in office in 2023. He made the declaration during a crucial closed-door meeting with service chiefs held on Thursday at the presidential villa in Abuja. The National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Munguno, conveyed the president's message to State House correspondents at the end of the meeting, which lasted more than 5 hours. According to the NSA, the last National Security Council meeting held on June 8th, and a lot has happened within the security domain since then till now. He explained that the next meeting was scheduled to hold next week, but the president decided to draw it back for Thursday for what he described as obvious reasons. Munguno hinted that the meeting briefed President Buhari on the current security situation in the country, especially on happenings from the last meeting till the latest one. And President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the recommendation of a committee on the review of 368 grazing sites across 25 states. The committee recommended the production of maps and the tagging of sites to be used for grazing. It also recommended the design of appropriate communication on grazing reserves and operations. The presidential approval is coming less than 2 weeks to the September 1 deadline given by southern states for the ban on open grazing. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says Nigeria cannot be described as a failed state insisting that the country is only witnessing insecurity in some parts. The minister, who argued that the country is winning the war against insecurity, noted that insurgents are surrendering to the increased onslaught from security agents. Lai Mohammed, who asked Nigerians to appreciate the government's fight against insecurity, noted that the nation's security situation is a lot better than what the present government met when it assumed power. Recalling how the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan, the minister explained that ideologies are hard to defeat, something he says the present administration has been able to surmount while fighting Boko Haram. According to him, before the present government, Boko Haram controlled a swath of land the size of Belgium, but have now been pushed to a very small area. And the Nigerian Air Force says it is winning the war against terror in Nigeria. NAF Director of Public Relations and Information, Edward Gapquet, said this during a parley with defense correspondents. PlusTvAfrica's Destiny Momo tells us more.
National security is a major concern in Nigeria's development, and the law enforcement agencies say they are working in synergy to combat terrorism in the country. Recently, the Air Force has had their fair share of crashed helicopters in the course of battle against terrorism. However, its spokesman, Edward Gapquet, says they are undeterred as the war against terror is being won.
Absolutely, very well, in conjunction with the Nigerian Army and Nigerian Navy, the synergy, the jointness that has been brought to bear with regards to the war against insurgency, banditry, has been yielding very fantastic results. And as we're seeing, some of the terrorists have started surrendering willingly, clearly an indication that the cooperation that has been brought in the fight against insurgency is really winning.
Gapquet also speaks on the plan of the force to improve its capacity to protect the nation's territorial integrity.
The last 6 years, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has been very, very kind to the Nigerian Air Force. As at the last count, we have over 30 brand new aircrafts that have been purchased for the service. These platforms have gone a long way in ensuring that we become and will remain very relevant with regards to our operations. We have also been very fortunate that the federal government has supported us in also revamping those fleets that were grounded in the past. Engineers have also been well trained, and generally it's a lot of things are going on that we only give thanks to the President and Commander-in-Chief.
As the set of service chiefs are seemingly in sync with their readiness to combat terrorism in Nigeria, there is hope for better results. Destiny Momo for PlusTvAfrica.
And public opinion is tense on the kidnap of students and staff of the Zamfara State College of Agriculture and Animal Sciences. Stakeholders are reacting to this with a call for a state of emergency on Nigeria's security and education sectors. Anetta Felix has details.
Students of the Zamfara State College of Agriculture and Animal Sciences, bound by their hands, blindfolded, surrounded by terrorists and pleading to be saved.
Muna fuskantar barazana ta kashi daga gare su muddin gwamnati bata dauki mataki cikin awa 24 ba.
15 students and 4 teachers of the school were kidnapped on Sunday, while 4 others died in the attack. On PlusTvAfrica's breakfast show, public affairs analyst Nick Agule calls out the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, for failing to fulfill his promise to protect school children.
President Muhammadu Buhari looked the nation in the face directly and told the nation that the kidnapping, the school kidnapping that happened, was it in Niger State some months ago, will be the last school kidnapping in Nigeria. And since the president made that statement, we have had several school kidnappings thereafter. One would expect that if a president looks the citizens in the face and makes a commitment that he actually has the mind to follow through on that commitment.
He also suggests ways to track the location of the bandits.
Government could have installed trackers on those bikes before they were handed over to the kidnappers. And once the bikes were handed over to the kidnappers, the government can pinpoint with precision where those bikes are moving. And they can go to that particular spot, round up the bandits, kill them, or arrest them, depending on their choice.
According to Agule, it's high time the government declared a state of emergency on Nigeria's education sector.
They need to declare emergency in the security sector, and we need a state of emergency in the education sector. But the government of Nigeria has not taken even simple steps like that, where they can put a communication system in place with every school giving a dedicated phone line to call for security response if their school is under attack.
The abductors are demanding a ransom of 350 million naira before they would release them. But the government is yet to respond. Annetta, Felix, PlusTvAfrica.
Thanks to Annetta Felix for that. The Police Service Commission has set up a panel to study documents related to the FBI's indictment of former head of Police Intelligence Response Team, Abba Kyari. The panel is headed by Tijani Mohammed, a director at the commission, and will investigate the allegations against Kyari. This means there are at least 2 panels probing the FBI indictment. Kyari got into trouble after a U.S. court issued a warrant for his arrest over his alleged involvement in a $1.1 million internet fraud masterminded by Instagram influencer Hush Puppy. And as part of efforts to curb oil theft in Rivers State, the State Command of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, has arrested 10 suspected oil thieves in various parts of the state.
Commandant of the NSCDC, Aliyu Baturi, who disclosed this in Port Harcourt while parading some of the suspects, stated that 4 trucks containing illegal refined petroleum products were among items seized from the suspects. Baturi says officers of the command intercepted a truck containing petroleum products suspected to be automotive gas oil, popularly called diesel, along UTC Junction in Port Harcourt, following credible intelligence.
We are parading 10 suspects of oil thieves and 4 trucks conveying suspected illegal refined products. On the 16th of August, 2021, at about 11:30 hours, the command arrested 5 suspects conveying suspected stolen AGO stuck in a sack in a trailer truck with registration number JJ552SD along Trans-Amadi area. Some of the arrested suspects confessed to the crime, while the rest are currently undergoing thorough investigation and will be charged to court in due course.
The commandant, who recently assumed office, vowed to put everything in place to nip crime rates on the board, especially those relating to illegal oil businesses, and protect the country's critical assets in the state.
Was arrested at Igu Island with 3 suspects. It contained an NGO suspected to be adulterated illegally refined products. Our message to the public is that we are not relented in dealing with all illegal bunkering.
We go to carry, then calls to go and carry something. Then from there, as we reach there, they unload the thing. The time they unload the thing, me I know they around. So they come tell us and make we go. As we come there, to come move from there, I come see security agents.
Because of my friend called me to come and direct motor tanker to Ikwele Road where we know road. Not from there they arrested me.
Baturi warned those involved in illegal oil deals and other criminal activities across the state to stop and urged residents to report strange movements in their areas for prompt action.
Still in the news, a former governor of Abia State, Theodore Orji, was arrested on Thursday by operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The former governor's arrest was confirmed by EFCC spokesperson Wilson Uwujai. He is currently a lawmaker representing Abia Central Senatorial District in the state. Orji, who has been on the commission's watch list, was intercepted at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, at about 10 a.m. on Thursday and brought to the headquarters of the EFCC at Jabi, Abuja, for continuation of his interrogation. He's been quizzed alongside his son, Chinedu, the current Speaker of the Abia State House of Assembly, who turned himself in yesterday afternoon upon learning of his father's arrest. Senator Orji and sons Chinedu and Obun are currently under investigation by the EFCC for offences bordering on misappropriation of public funds and money laundering. And the House of Representatives has expressed displeasure over the way some government agencies conceal their revenues, thereby denying the federal government the fund for budgeting. The House criticizes the way the country resorts to borrowing 5.62 trillion naira to finance deficit in the 2022 budget, while these agencies starve the government of funds. Chairman House Committee on Finance, James Faleke, made this known at the ongoing public hearing on the 2022-2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper on Thursday in Abuja. Faleke said the major problem facing the country was revenue generation, adding that the House of Reps would be more interested in how much government agencies could save. He said that if the House of Reps discovered that any of the government agencies' capital projects were unnecessary, it would be removed in a bid to get revenue for the country. And now for some COVID-19 updates. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says 674 additional COVID-19 infections and 8 more deaths have been registered in the last 24 hours. And this brings the number of confirmed infections since the start of the pandemic to more than 185,000. The new cases were reported in 16 states and the Federal Capital Territory, with Lagos State recorded more than half of the fresh infections. The resurgence in cases is driven by the highly transmissible Delta variant and the low vaccination rate in the country. Now to news in other parts of Africa. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed concern about the humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. At a press briefing in New York, Guterres particularly made mention of unspeakable violence against women and others in Tigray. The UN chief called for an end to the conflict in the region as well as the suffering it has brought. The Ethiopian government has been involved in a battle with separatist Tigray Liberation Front, a crisis that has caused a huge humanitarian situation. Still in other parts of Africa, Algeria says it will review its relations with Morocco after accusing it of complicity in deadly forest fires. At least 90 people, including 33 soldiers, were killed in dozens of forest fires that broke out amid a blistering heat wave 2 weeks ago. Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune believes most of the fires were criminal in origin. Algiers' decision to review relations with Rabat was made during an extraordinary meeting of Algeria's Security Council, chaired by the president. A presidency statement released afterwards accused Morocco of incessant hostile acts. And South Africa's parliament has elected a recently fired former defense minister as speaker. This has caused anger among opposition parties who cast doubt on her competence and probity. Nosiviwe Mapisa Nkakula was removed as defense minister this month during a cabinet reshuffle that followed a spree of deadly unrest and looting in parts of the country. The ex-minister had come under fire for her perceived incompetence in responding to the violence. She was also accused of contradicting President Cyril Ramaphosa's claim that the events had been pre-planned insurrection. And moving outside Africa now, the Taliban have stepped up their search for people who worked for NATO forces or the previous Afghan government, a UN document has warned. It said the militants have been going door to door to find targets and threatening their family members. The hardline Islamist group has tried to reassure Afghans since seizing power in a lightning offensive, promising there would be no revenge. But their fears, the Taliban, have changed little since the brutal 1990s. The warning the group were targeting collaborators came in confidential document by the RHIPTO Norwegian Center for Global Analysis, which provides intelligence to the United Nations. And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on Thursday, August 19th, the Taliban's desire for international recognition is the Security Council's only leverage to press for inclusive government and respect for rights, particularly for women in Afghanistan. Guterres told reporters he discussed that leverage with the 15-member body during a closed-door meeting on Monday, urging them to remain united.
It's very important for the international community to be united, for all members of the Security Council, but in general for the international community to be united, to use the only leverage that exists, which is the interest of the Taliban for legitimacy, for recognition. And for that to be possible, I think it's important that the international community is speaking one single voice. It's essential to have an inclusive government representing all the different ethnic groups that exist in the country, that there will be full respect for human rights, and in particular the question of women's rights is very important for us, and there will be the possibility to evacuate without problems those people that would be in danger to be able to leave, and finally that the territory should never be used again by any terrorist organization of wherever area of action.
The Security Council must insist with all Afghan parties that the full, equal and meaningful participation of women in any new government is a non-negotiable condition of international engagement. We've all heard the purported assurances from the Taliban that the rights of women and girls will be respected. What we hear from women on the ground does not bear this out. The past record of the Taliban does not bear this out. The Security Council must listen to Afghan women and it must heed them. Now is the time for the Council to stand with the women and girls of Afghanistan.
Now in business news, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, has inaugurated the Steering Committee for the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. The inauguration ceremony held on Thursday in Abuja, a day after President Muhammadu Buhari approved the constitution of the committee with a directive to immediately commence the implementation of the PIA. Silva urged the committee members to live up to their responsibilities, saying a lot was expected of them from Nigerians and foreign stakeholders. He stressed the need to do all that it takes to deliver on the assignment in a manner that best achieves the collective vision for bringing the anticipated gains to the country. And Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, says oil firms operating in the Niger Delta have defaulted in their statutory remittances to the Niger Delta Development Commission to the tune of $4 billion. Akpabio made the claim on Thursday at the weekly ministerial briefing held at State House in Abuja. He noted that oil firms operating in the area are expected to provide 3% of their annual budgets to the Commission, but none has complied with this. Akpabio stressed that the Ministry of Niger Delta will take a keen interest in the implementation of the 3% Petroleum Industry Act compensation to host communities. The former Akwa Ibom governor also stated that the NDDC owes contractors 3 trillion naira. He, however, explained that not all awarded contracts with costs can be regarded as debt. Moving on to entertainment news, Ololade Gbolahan, also known as KV, a former housemate on Big Brother Naija Season 6, has broken his silence following his unexpected departure from the reality TV show. On Wednesday, August 18th, the photographer turned reality TV personality posted a press statement on his Instagram profile. He expressed gratitude to everyone who has supported him since his withdrawal due to mental health difficulties. He did, however, admit that he is in a medical facility dealing with his crippling anxiety. He said, in quote, "Since my withdrawal from the house, I have reconnected with my family and I am currently in a medical facility working through the anxiety I felt. I covet your love and prayers." Part of his statement read, and also following his fight with mental health difficulties, KV willingly left the reality TV show. Moving on to sports news, Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne and Chelsea pair N'Golo Kante and Jorginho are in the running for UEFA's 2020-2021 Male Player of the Year award after topping an all-midfield shortlist published on Thursday. All featured in Euro 2020, De Bruyne for Belgium, Kanté for France, and Jorginho with winners Italy. And the shortlist is the first in the 11-year existence of the award to feature only midfielders. UEFA did not reveal the number of votes cast for the three. Barcelona's Lionel Messi, the 6 times Ballon d'Or winner, who was moved from Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain, was 4th on the list. Bayern Munich's Polish striker Robert Lewandowski's who was last year's winner, came in 5th with PSG's Gianluigi Donnarumma and Kylian Mbappe 6th and 7th. And that's the news brief. For more, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osao Ogbawa. Thanks for watching.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome to the fitness segment on the Breakfast Show on Plus TV. My name is Eric and I'm from Lafayette Gym. So we're going to be showing you exercises you can do